Okay, students, here's my little tutorial on how to study. Now, some of you might be watching this before even embarking on the class, which is great, and you can start your studying off right. Some of you may have done not as well as you'd like on an exam and are frustrated and want to know what you can do better. That's great. I'm glad you're seeking help. So this is my tips for studying. So there are a lot of things we know about studying from developmental psychology, educational psychology, and so I'm going to go through those really quickly. The first one is most important. Rereading your notes is pointless. You might as well go watch some Netflix. It is not going to do anything for you. We've shown that time and time again. Do not reread your notes. Often students come into my office and say, gosh, Dr. Jensen, I'm not doing as well as I'd like. And I say, how are you studying? Well, I go through all the notes. I go through all the PowerPoints. I go through all the homework assignments. That's not the way to study. It does nothing for you. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, explaining the material to another person helps you recognize where you don't understand things. All right, so that is your biggest tool. Now, it would be best if it was somebody from the class because they'll be more familiar with the material and can catch you if you say things wrong. A TA is even better. They've got office hours. You can explain it to them. But going to a TA and having them explain things to you is not helpful. You need to go explain things to them and have them say, ooh, that's not quite right, and then help you through it. But it can also be your mom, your dad, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your dog, or even the wall. Right? So you're going to explain it out loud to someone else so that you can recognize gaps. Third thing, actively drawing from memory has shown to strengthen your neuronal connections to the material. So that means quizzing yourself. It's called the testing effect. So the more times you can struggle with that difficulty to pull it out of your memory, the better you will be at recalling that information when it's important, when it matters. And then the last one is interleaving your studying is more effective than cramming. That means that you should study biology for half an hour and then go play a game of basketball, or go study another subject and then come back to biology and study it again, or wait a day and study it again. And you might think, well, gosh, if I break up the studying like that, I'm always starting over and having to go, okay, where was I and what that starting over and the where was I and what was that is actually beneficial to your learning. So that struggle for your brain to get back into the mode is actually really good for you. So you should interleave it with, Netflix. Obviously do something more productive, but Netflix would be fun too. All right, so those are the main keys to studying. So how would you approach this class? All right, so the first thing I would do is I would go to our Canvas course. This is what yours looks like, and I would click on that first link, the learning outcomes. This is your best friend. It's also in your packet at the beginning of each unit, but it's available here all in one. So when you click on that, it brings it up like this. You can download it, or you can just scroll through and look at them right here. Whoops. And so with the learning outcomes, you're going to do two things with a partner, not by yourself, right? So number one, you're going to explain what we did in class or in the homework that demonstrates that particular learning outcome. And then the second thing you're going to do is suggest a potential exam question that I could ask you that would have to do with that particular learning outcome, because that's how we write the exams. We look at the learning outcome and say, can students do this? So let me show you an example. All right, and we're going to start sort of early in the semester, so hopefully you've seen day 2. If not, come back and watch this video after day 2. Actually after day 3, because we use some of the homework. All right, so day 2's learning outcomes, here they are. So let's say we want to look at the 6th learning outcome. So be able to determine the independent and dependent variables in a given experimental scenario. All right, so then you're going to ask yourself, gosh, what did we do in class or the homework where we had to determine the independent and dependent variables? Well, I remember in class doing the termites and watching the termites and running the experiments, and you might think with your group, well, in our group we tried a square versus a circle, and we noticed that the termites followed both the square and the circle, and so we concluded it wasn't a shape thing, and so we practiced identifying in that particular scenario. The independent variable was the one we were testing. Did we use a square or a circle? And the dependent variable was the one we were measuring. What did the termites do? Okay, so I remember doing that. And you might think, oh gosh, what else did we do? Well, I remember in the homework doing all that practice in day 3, looking at the different scenarios. So one of them was fruit flies and body size. And I remember in that particular homework assignment, it gave us an experiment and specifically asked us, what are the independent and dependent variables in the experiment? So in this particular experiment, if you remember, the independent variable was how much oxygen was in the environment in which the fruit flies were growing. And then the dependent variable, what we're measuring, is the size of the flies. So remember doing that. So see, I would be having this conversation with another person from the class or with a TA and saying, this is what we did, and explaining it to them. Okay, and you would do that for every single learning outcome for all of the days that are in that unit. And then the next question is, what would a potential exam question look like? Well, that's pretty easy because we saw some. So she might give me a scientist ran the following experiment, blah, blah, blah. And would ask, what's the scientist's independent variable? What's the scientist's dependent variable? Okay, and in fact, that is one of my most common exam questions. All right. And then just to top it off, if you really want to get it into your head, then you should go back to the learning outcomes after you've had these conversations with somebody and try to recall from memory all of the information, because recalling it from memory is going to strengthen the connection with the material. So I'm hoping you've watched this video, you're applying these principles. There's another video available by Dr. Chu that you can get some more study strategies. And then obviously if you're still struggling, please come and see me and we can talk more about strategies. All right, good luck.